Welcome to the Proof Positive Podcast, a podcast providing proof there are plenty of good things going on in our world despite what we hear and read, with a secondary goal of motivating you to go out and create your own good news. Episode 17, Which Wolf Do You Listen to? Today's show is sort of a mashup of thought-provoking stories. They serve to confirm there is good and positivity everywhere. We just need to look for and listen for it. The last story of today's show begins with a young man who is seeking the advice of his grandfather. Tell him that he has all of these ideas bouncing around in his head. The grandfather tells him that it is like you have two wolves in your head. One is the good wolf, and the other is the bad wolf. For more, stay tuned. Before we help you figure out which wolf you're listening to, let's start off with some inspirational quotes to get our juices flowing. The most important decision you make is to be in a good mood. That's from Voltaire. Isn't that a simple truth? In episode 16, I mentioned my starting to do EFT tapping meditation first thing in the morning. I choose not to tap for myself, but rather to try and use my energy force to help others who are ill or in pain. These consist of many of the cancer patients I drive or have driven, as well as family and friends. If you think this is a bit out there, Dawson Church, in his book Mind to Matter, cites several studies showing the effectiveness of such exercises. And besides, it's a terrific way to start the day. Thinking of others in a positive way versus digesting a string of bad news by listening to the radio or watching TV or reading the newspaper. The next quote comes from Albert Einstein. Stay away from negative people. They have a problem for every solution. Another truism that brings back memories to my leading my teams at work. I had a saying with them that you can't come to me with a problem without a proposed solution. This was meant to encourage them to think and not just react. Still, this quote highlights negativity breeding negativity, whereas positivity breeds positivity. There is nothing good that ever comes from being negative, but there is unlimited good that comes from thinking positively. And our last quote comes from Frederick Douglass. It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. I immediately thought of my friend, the Reverend Jimmy Dispennis, who you'll hear from in an upcoming show when reading this quote. Jimmy ministers to inmates at some of the toughest prisons in the state of Virginia. Although at first blush, it may not seem to tie into the theme of this podcast. In my opinion, it does, and here's how. On the show, my guests and I repeatedly mention how even the smallest of acts can have an impact, both positive and, unfortunately, in some cases, negative. Frederick Douglass, in his quote, is highlighting that when it comes to how we raise our children, if we raise them well, we support them, and we teach them to do good things, they will flourish. However, if we fail to do so, later on, we will be left dealing with a group of broken men and women. Now that your brain is kickstarted, Move on to a story that a friend of mine shared from Facebook. It's a wonderful example of a random act of kindness, and in this case, performed by youths, a group we are often so quick to criticize. Freshmen at a North Carolina high school gained new friends after a rough first day of classes. Caleb Wren, 14, texted his sister that he sat alone at lunch and got lost several times, so she tweeted about that. And the next day, members of the school's football and basketball teams and students surprised Caleb at the lunch table.
At lunch, I had sat alone, and it was actually getting called short and stuff.
We decided to catch him off guard at lunch and have lunch with him and show him around the school and make sure that he was okay and get him new friends.
I was raised to help people. My mama didn't raise me to do nothing. So when I see stuff like that, then I need to help because I wouldn't want nobody to do that to me.
I've always been kind of used to being the loner, the outsider, the little outcast, but it feels good to have friends.
Next up, a story from the Good News Network, entitled, "For the First Time Ever, Canadians Use Crowdfunding to Buy Up Land for a New Protected Public Park." For the first time ever, a crowdfunding campaign has raised enough money to buy out a new swath of Canadian wilderness as a protected park. More than $3 million was raised through individual donations to protect 2,000 acres of the Princess Louisa Inlet on British Columbia's Sunshine Coast. The crowdfunding campaign was launched by the BC Parks Foundation, a nonprofit that works in collaboration with BC Parks to protect the province's pristine landscapes. After several months of fundraising, the last chunk of donations needed to purchase the land from a private seller came in just before the campaign's deadline last week. Once the sale is finalized, the land will be transferred to BC Parks for conversion into a Class A provincial park, so it will be forever protected from logging and development. BC Parks Foundation CEO Andrew Day wrote a letter to the campaign supporters thanking them for their miraculous success. "We still have to finalize the sale with a vendor, and there are more steps to come, but in donating the funds, you have scaled a substantial peak on this amazing expedition," wrote Day. "We know people want to keep BC beautiful, and we know our parks are the core of our identity. They are our cathedrals, our towers, our pyramids, the wonders of our world. But we couldn't have predicted such a fabulous outpouring in such a short time from so many different people and places. We are in a state of awe and gratitude. We will keep you posted when the deal is finalized. Any funds that continue to come in will be put in our parks bank to protect more areas in Prince Louisa and British Columbia," he concluded. What a brilliant idea. Where do people come up with this stuff? It got me wondering if we could get something like this started in the US. If you have any ideas or thoughts on this, email me at proofpositivepodcast@gmail.com, and maybe we can get something started. Our next story also comes from the Good News Network and is headlined, "Park Rangers Hailing Little Girl as a Steward of Nature After She Returned a Rock with an Apology Note." Park rangers are praising an anonymous little girl for being an excellent role model for park preservation after she returned a heart-shaped stone that she had taken during her visit. According to a post from the Great Smoky Mountains National Park Facebook page, rangers were surprised to receive a tiny package without any return address from a youngster who only identified herself as Karina. The package included a small heart-shaped rock and an apology letter from the girl explaining how she felt guilty about taking the rock during her recent visit to the park. Dear Park Ranger, the letter read, Deep Creek was awesome. I especially liked Tom Branch Falls. I loved it so much, I wanted to have a souvenir to come home with me, so I took a rock, it continued. I'm sorry and I want to return it. Also, here's a donation. Not only did she return the rock, she also included a drawing of the park as a bonus. The park rangers were so touched by the gesture, they snapped some photos of the letter and the rock being returned to its home so they could publish them on social media. Already you are becoming an amazing steward for the park, wrote the rangers. Thank you for recognizing that what is in the park should stay in the park. If every visitor took a rock home, that would mean 11 million rocks would be gone from the park every year. The park would definitely not be as beautiful as it was before, they added. Rocks in the Smokies also provide homes for hundreds of creatures, including salamanders. By leaving rocks where they are, we're helping protect these special homes as well as the beauty of the park. In addition to their hopes that Karina would see their note of gratitude on Facebook, the Rangers say they also wanted to inspire other readers to show the same amount of respect in the park. It's important to us that thousands of others who visit the park see that and relate to the message and take that home with them, Education Park Ranger Jesse Snow told the Washington Post. This story is a reminder that even when we do something bad, there's always time to correct our action, if we're only willing to admit our mistake. None of us are perfect, but a key positive trait that I've found is being willing to admit to making a mistake and then taking action to do something about it. The story really hit home for me because I had a personal situation that mimicked this. I once took a buddy of mine backpacking in Yosemite National Park. He'd never been in the outdoors much, but he was really enjoying the trip. One day we were stopped for the evening and he pulled a rock from his pocket. I asked him what that was, and he said he had taken it as a souvenir for the trip. Explaining the concept of leave no trace, he wasn't buying it. So I then told him that some of us believe it is bad karma to take anything from the mountains. Well, we returned home, and I'm sorry to say, my friend had a terrible run of luck in his personal life. I didn't want to rub it in, but one day we were together, and he said, I wish I hadn't taken that rock. The life lesson, we all need to learn to respect Mother Nature and preserve it for others to enjoy. Leave no trace. Our next story comes from my hometown newspaper, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and involves our furry friends. It had the headline, Pet Tales, High-Flying Pilots and a Retired Schoolteacher Rescue Animals. The plane landed to enthusiastic applause, and animal lovers ran out onto a runway at the Allegheny County Airport to greet passengers from Kentucky. 7 wide-eyed kittens and 13 tail-wagging puppies. That was the crowd-pleasing highlight of the annual Dog Days of Summer party that raised nearly $250,000 for the Pittsburgh Aviation Animal Rescue Team. One of the 610 guests was Peggy Buckley of Brookline. During the gala last Saturday, Miss Buckley, 85, was honored for more than 40 years of finding homes for homeless dogs and cats. She was also applauded for her role as a volunteer pet detective who has helped reunite more than 100 lost dogs with their owners. Miss Buckley seemed to know at least half the guests who work or volunteer with a wide array of rescue organizations and shelters. That includes Robert Forgasso, an Animal Friends board member who made the surprise presentation. Peggy never stops, no matter what hour of the day or night. When the police call, Peggy opens her door to needy animals. Pittsburgh police officer Christine Luffy, who has known Buckley for over 20 years, agreed. She calls Miss Buckley when she and fellow officers find stray dogs in the hours when the animal control is not operating. She has helped me rescue countless animals over the years and has helped me build bridges with many rescue organizations, Miss Luffy said in a telephone interview. I honestly believe she is an angel on earth. Miss Buckley and Miss Luffy find homes for most of the animals. The others end up as Miss Buckley's personal pets. The current census includes a number of dogs and cats. Miss Buckley started her rescue efforts in 1977. The pace picked up in September 1997 when she retired after teaching for 28 years in Pittsburgh Public Schools. She doesn't keep count, but her supporters say she has saved hundreds of animals. She spends hours on her computer every day working her extensive mail list to put local shelters and rescues in touch with shelters in other states that have animals scheduled to be killed. The emails about doomed animals come with photos and bios, and many are saved. Some are transported by part. She coordinates her efforts with Mr. Fergasso, who also has a large life-saving email list. They spread the word about pets that are lost. Sally and Stuart Miller of McMurray are among the many people Miss Buckley has helped. They were on an airplane returning from a vacation in July 2018 when their pet sitter texted them that their collie shepherd mix, Izzy, had run away when a gate was briefly left open. When they got home, they posted their plight on social media and started looking for Izzy. We couldn't sleep, we couldn't eat, Miss Miller said. Miss Buckley spent a day searching for them in Cashel Shannon, Whitehall, and Bethel Park. She told us to call Izzy's name and then remain in that spot to give her time to come to us, Miss Miller said. On the 5th day of the search, they went to a cemetery, called for Izzy, and sat down to wait. After 30 minutes, they gave up and went to their car. Just as Mr. Miller started the car, Izzy ran up and put her paws on the window. Part, which is P-A-A-R-T, is much loved by animal lovers. Since 2012, they've transported nearly 11,000 animals and one monarch butterfly from danger to safety, as they say on their NoDogsLeftBehind.org website. The dogs and cats come from poor states where shelters have high kill rates and from areas that have been hit by disasters, storms, and floods. Over the last year, 2,400 animals have been transported by plane and by the vans Part calls land planes. The dog days, kittens, and puppies came from Kentucky in an air van that was donated by celebrity chef Rachel Ray. Puppies were Labrador Retriever mixes, long-bodied, long-nosed black puppies that look like Dachshund mixes, and a fawn-colored green-eyed Mastiff mix that volunteers named Peanut Butter. Volunteer pilots said the puppies and kittens slept through the entire flight, which is what usually happens. The puppies are at Cross Your Paws in Irwin, and the kittens at Kitty Queen Cat Rescue in McKees Rocks. All are available for adoption. Jonathan Plessette, who founded Part with Brad Childs, said passenger manifests over the years show 9,750 dogs, 864 cats, 77 guinea pigs, 65 sea turtles, 10 rats, 9 hamsters, 5 rabbits, and that one monarch butterfly. Butterflies are tagged to track their migration, and one came down off course, Mr. Plessette said. A butterfly rescue group called us and said it needed to go to Tennessee. Luckily, Part was headed for Tennessee, so the insect was delivered to the airport in a little foam container. There was plenty of room for one butterfly, and it survived that unorthodox leg of its migration journey, Mr. Plessette said. Stories of humans saving animals always serve to lift my spirits and renew my hope in mankind. That sort of compassion is something that bridges political, religious, and social differences and hopefully serves to bring us closer together. Okay, ready to find out which wolf you listen to? The story that inspired the title of this week's episode comes from the great people at UpLift Connect. is actually from a video, the link to which is in the show notes. The video is entitled The Transformative Power of Gratitude. Let's take a listen.
There's this little kid who comes to his grandfather and says, I've got so many thoughts in my head, I'm going crazy, what do I do? So the grandfather tells him, it's like you've got two wolves in your head. And one is the good wolf and the other is the bad wolf. And the good wolf makes you feel great about yourself, great about people around you, great about life. And the bad wolf makes you feel bad about yourself, it makes you crib about people around you, it makes you nitpick, it makes you see all the negativity that surrounds you. And so the little boy says, then how do I make the good wolf win? So the old man says to him that the one you feed wins. And so peace, gratitude, love, happiness, these are all practices. One of the things that I do fairly regularly, I must admit I don't do it every day, but I do it fairly regularly, is every evening I write 5 things I'm grateful for today. I write them down or I say them out, talk to a friend or someone just before going to bed. 5 things I'm grateful for today. I have found that I go through the day looking for things to be grateful about because I need to say them out in the night, right? Oh yes, and the rule is you cannot repeat what you said yesterday today. So the first few days it's easy. I'm grateful for mom, I'm grateful for dad, I'm grateful for the dog, I'm grateful, and so you go through the normal things, but in 10 days you kind of run out of stuff that you are normally grateful for. So you go around looking for things that you are grateful for, and because you are just doing that, you're not looking for things that bother you or irritate you because those are not in your radar at all anymore. And I think there was some Harvard Medical School study that made the participants do this gratitude exercise, and they found that their brains physically changed in 40 days of doing this. Like certain parts of the prefrontal cortex became a little bigger. So our brain physically changed because you just wrote 5 things I'm grateful for today for just 40 days. So it's a practice. It needs to become part of life. Unfortunately, we have made violence and anger and arrogance and all these things part of life. But it's just as easy to make love and peace and joy and happiness part of your life. It's just practice.
Isn't that a remarkable concept? Another illustration of something that once you hear it sounds so simple, but yet rational. It ties in so closely to the ideas of Dawson Church, further affirming for me the power of what Dawson mentions as synchronicity. I encourage you to give the ideas of writing down 5 things for which you are grateful a try. I know I'm going to try doing it. I'm only on day 1, but I can understand what he's saying about after you get about 5 days into it, it could get a little more tricky. But that'll be okay because that'll cause me to look up for the things that I am grateful for. Dawson, by the way, has written about similar studies where thinking positively is good for us not only mentally, but also physically. Besides the fact that it attunes us to opportunities to help others. I'm a big believer in the power of positivity and of momentum. That positivity breeds more positivity. And when we are more positive, those around us are moved to be positive. And those around them, and so on and so on. That concludes episode 17 of the Proof Positive podcast. I'll leave you today with the question that is the title of this episode. Which wolf do you choose to listen to? The one that shows you the good in life or the one that breeds negativity? It's your choice. My theme music is from the amazingly talented folks at Purple Planet. You can check them out at purple-planet.com. If you have an idea for the show, a comment or suggestion, you can email me at proofpositivepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we're doing, tell a friend. Word of mouth is still the best way to grow an audience. I'll be dropping episode 18 next week, but in the meantime, borrowing a line from one of my favorite podcasts, Blackout, look out for each other.